We're living through a time where America has been dramatically changed. There's no question. We've sort of watched almost a complete shutdown of the United States. We're sort of on pause. A lot of people are angry about it. I don't know how many people are angry, but there's a significant amount of people who are frustrated and anxious. I got a text message a little while ago from the Atlanta area code that said, "I'm finished with you. I've been a fan for years, but you're just giving in to the mob and the crowd." Listen, you can pretend that what's happening all around us, that millions of Americans aren't currently out of work. You can pretend that most businesses are closed. You can pretend that the stock market, although the Dow opened up, and there's some optimism about the antics on Capitol Hill. Fortunately, we've got some good news to present to you after a couple of days of nonsense from Nancy Pelosi and Jim Clyburn and all the rest of the Democrats who tried to be opportunistic over COVID-19 and roll in a bunch of pork that would fit their progressive agenda. It's hard for me to even form the words to explain the disgust that most Americans feel, Democrats and Republicans, over playing games on the backs of people who are out of work. But my big point here is you can pretend it isn't happening. You could wish it wasn't happening. I truly believe you got to be a realist. You have to accept what's happening around us. And the president is dealing with a pandemic and doing everything that is possible, I truly believe, to get as much relief to as many Americans as possible, to get ahead of the curve, to try to beat this thing back and win and restore this country to greatness again. And I've tried to be as bipartisan as possible. The Democrats have made it very hard. Do you know what the New York Times did over the Democrats shutting down the stimulus bill discussion this week? Did you see this? The New York Times changed headlines 3 times. 3 times. They first had it. They certainly reported on it accurately. The first headline was correct. The headline said, and it was accurate, Democrats block action on $1.8 trillion stimulus. Then they obviously got pushback, and they changed it to Democrats block action on stimulus plan seeking worker protections. And then they changed it a third time to Partisan Divide Threatens Deal on Rescue Plan. That's the New York Times. They literally lied to their readers because they've done this before, incidentally, changing headlines if, God forbid, they give the slightest bit of credit to Trump. And here's a headline they had to change because they put the blame where it belonged. The Democrats blocking the $1.8 trillion stimulus. That's a fact. Oh, making the Democrats look bad. The New York Times can't bear to do that. This is corruption in the media. This isn't journalism. This is advocacy. And we shouldn't, last time I checked, COVID-19 didn't pick and choose who gets infected with this virus. It's not partisan. It shouldn't be partisan. We have got to come together as Americans to beat this thing. And the political gamesmanship that we've been watching, horrifying. 46,485 cases so far in the United States, around 500 deaths so far, 17,000 deaths around the world in the last 24 hours. Again, in the United States, 593 deaths to be precise. Now, I don't say this to be cavalier about the severity of the spread. I do listen carefully to the experts, and I have been studying and reading, but I think again, some perspective is real. When people say that the flu is far more deadlier than COVID 19, again, that's not an opinion, that's a fact. We can expect COVID 19 deaths to increase, and we need to be ready for that and not be insensitive to the anguish that this is causing people. But if you had to guess how many people died from the flu this year, just this year alone, do you know what the number is? Again, we know the number for COVID 19 deaths is right now stands at 594 in the United States. It's terrible. It's awful. It's tragic. We are socially distancing ourselves. We are isolating. Most of us are doing everything we can. Not all, but most. 594 deaths to COVID 19. The deaths to flu, 23,000. And that's just through today. That's just 2020. There are thousands and thousands of more deaths to flu than there have been so far to COVID 19. Now, the risk in me sharing that with you is that I don't want people to think, well, we got nothing to worry about, because that's not true. We have plenty to worry about. We should be concerned. I do believe in social distancing, not touching each other, not getting within 6 feet of each other to flatten the curve. I believe Dr. Anthony Fauci. I'm listening to President Trump. I'm listening to Governor DeSantis, Governor Cuomo, all the governors, Governor Newsom. But I want you to just have that perspective for a minute before you think that this is a plague that's wiping out humanity here in the United States. It's not. And people are being mocked for saying this. Again, please hear me. I'm begging you to hear my words. We should not let down our guard. We shouldn't stop any of the smart, hygienic, safe practices and the isolating that we're doing. I just want you to know a number. 23,000 flu deaths in the United States so far, 594 COVID-19 deaths in the United States so far.